Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another Ukraine update for you guys. So before we get into it, I just want to say a thank you for stopping by. I really do appreciate every single one of you guys. And for you that are brand new to the channel, my name's Ryan. I'm a former commando from the United Kingdom. So we've been doing these updates for a while now. We're recently getting a bit of traction on the channel with regards to the updates. So we're continuing to bring you the good news. Hopefully you can stick around for the whole video. And yeah, guys, enjoy. So the question I want to ask you guys is this, and it's part of the news article that we're going to get through, is China. What does it actually want from Ukraine crisis with Russia? We've seen talks with Vladimir Putin and Xi over the past few days, but, you know, what does it want from the Ukraine crisis? There's got to be something that they can gain from the whole situation. We're going to get into that today, guys, and see if we can answer that question. And if you want to elaborate on that in the chat, let me know, troops. So as the war of words between the United States and Russia grows louder over Ukraine, one major player on the international stage has spoken up firmly as well. And that's China. They've been quite vocal over the past few days, troops, to say the least. In fact, Beijing has called for calm on both sides at the end of the Cold War mentality. They want the Cold War mentality to be gone. So at least we can all kind of share that same perspective on the war, guys. But for China to be coming out with those things, especially with their close connections to Russia, I guess that has a bit of weight behind it. Okay. But they also want to make it clear it supports Moscow's concerns. So trying to be neutral in one sense, but in the other sense, they're saying, hey, we might have a neutral opinion, but we're still with Russia on this, okay? They still back that team, so to speak. But it would seem obvious that China would side with its long-time ally and former communist comrade Russia. But how and why is it doing this goes deeper than their history. So there's a little bit more to it than that. Now, last week, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi called Russia's security concerns legitimate. Key word there, legitimate. So they're in a nutshell saying, you know, what's going on in Ukraine, we have no problem with what's going on in Ukraine. We agree upon, all right? We are all for the reasons that Russia is invading Ukraine, or as they said in the beginning, a specialist operation. I don't agree with that terminology, but, you know, China is effectively saying that they agree with that, okay, and they back it all the way, so to speak. But it's, you know, what they're saying here, it really should be taken seriously by the West, I believe. It's a serious concern for them to hold such a stance in that regard. On Monday, Chinese ambassador to the United Nations Zhang Jun went further and said outright that China disagreed with US claims that Russia was threatening international peace. He also criticized the United States for convening a meeting of the United Nations Security Council, liken it to megaphone diplomacy. So what he's trying to say is, like, diplomacy is one thing. We can all get around the table and have a chat and come to the right, you know, what's the word? The right summary of events. But with the microphone mentality, microphone diplomacy, I've heard that in the military before, is something where we might all be around that table, guys, but one person or two people in particular have got their opinion and they're holding the microphone to the mouth and they're speaking their point loud and clear. And that's a hint to say that, yeah, this might be diplomatic. We might all be able to get our points across, but effectively, you're not really. We're going to speak louder than you. So it's megaphone diplomacy at its finest. So couched in diplomatic speak, China's official line on the crisis has been cautious and nuanced, stopping short of actual support for Russia using military force against the former Soviet neighbor. So they're all in favor of it, guys. But some state media outlets covering the crisis have been blunter, coming at a time of anti-West sentiment in China. You know, China, we've seen, you know, you don't even have to read the news. We know that they've got kind of an anti-West almost stance. You know, the way we live and the way we do things in the West is they're definitely not for that. Okay, so yeah, I think anti-West is a little bit too strong, but they're certainly not for what we do, if that makes sense. And China's stance on it is, with regards to the West, is they're using Ukraine crisis and kind of They're trying to draw conclusions of the similarities, and saying that it's like it's portraying. Ukraine is basically portraying examples of failures in the West. So they're using that as a platform to display, look, this is why the West is wrong in many areas. Okay. So in China's view, it is the United States-led NATO that is acting as the bully in refusing to respect the sovereign right of another country, such as Russia and China, to defend their territory. Now, defending territory is one thing, disputing it is another, and whether you can claim that through means of sheer violence is a completely different set of circumstances that we can talk on, guys, okay? Whether you agree or not, whether you think it or not, you can't just go take land from people. Not in 2022, we're past that barbaric nature of man, or at least you'd like to think we are, when most of the world doesn't really agree with that. I would like to think most of the West, although we've done bad things in the past, we can all at least agree that that's not the right way to do things, okay? I certainly don't think it is anyway, So could China be trying to shape how the United States, NATO, and countries who are under the NATO umbrella, are they trying to potentially shape how the rest of the world see that as a body, so to speak? I think there could be, and it's even been stated here, and I'll read this quote. I think the goal here is to undermine the soft power of the United States, to tarnish the credibility and appeal of liberal institutions, and to discredit open media. Adding that this is an example of how Beijing regularly amplifies Kremlin talking points on Ukraine when it suits its interests. So effectively, it suits its narrative, how they run things, how they do things within their countries, and they're using that against and flipping it around to kind of tarnish the reputation of primarily NATO, but by default that affects America, by default that affects the United Kingdom. We all kind of live under a similar kind of freedom within the NATO umbrella, although it's a military safety net, so to speak. It's a way of living for the West as well. So there's a lot of back and forth going on here, and I think they are trying to tarnish that. They are trying to tarnish everything that stands for, and that's why I think China and Russia are in each other's pockets for that reason. All right, they both have similar mentalities of how they want to run their countries. I think together they're probably thinking, well, we are superpowers in our own right, or at least we thought Russia was. They're not really proving it in this war, but together with the same views, of how the world and how their country should work, together they're probably thinking that they could probably do better. So what does China want from the Ukraine crisis with Russia? I think they can use it as a catapult to be able to launch their own potential campaigns. We've seen problems in Taiwan and stuff, and support their way of living, because they think the way they live and the way Russia lives and does things is the right way. It's literally them against us in a nutshell, and it sounds quite bleak, but that's effectively what China wants, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, a little bit of an interesting topic that. If you've got any comments on that, let me know in the comments, guys.